Hello everyone! Today I'm going to teach you how to make a PngTuber. What's a PngTuber? Well, it's this thing that's talking to you right now. It's like a VTuber, but a lot simpler. Both VTubers and PngTubers can be used for a variety of things. You can put them in videos, like this one, use them while chatting with your friends, use them for streams, or you can even use them for video conferences. As long as they're really chill ones, though. And the great part about a PngTuber over VTuber is that it only requires a microphone to work and requires just so much less artwork. My god, I swear. If any of this sounds like something that interests you, or if you came here because you already were interested in this and you just wanted to see how the higgity heck it worked, then I'm going to include all the provided links in the description so you can either look into this later if you're interested by the end of this, or if you already are and you want to follow along as I do it. Now I would say let's just jump straight into the artwork, but there's actually two very important things you need to consider before making your character. More particularly, the canvas size and the color palette. Veadotube, the program we'll be using for setup, doesn't accept images that are larger than 2048 pixels on either side. With that said, 1024 pixels by 1024 pixels is the recommended size for the program, but you can adjust for whatever best fits with what you want to do. The next thing to consider is color. Avoid using at least one of the following colors, as these are the only background colors in Veadotube, and we're gonna key out the background later. With those things in mind, we can actually move on to creating an actual character! Yeah! So now we actually get to move on to art. When creating your artwork, use whatever art program you feel most comfortable with. In the end, it doesn't really matter because all the images will be PNGs. I mean, it is called PngTuber for a reason. I won't really be going into the design process, as whatever character you want to make is completely up to you. There's a wide variety of PngTubers that cover so many different ideas and topics that, honestly, I couldn't give you any advice on what to do anyway. However, I can give you advice on how to set up your character. If we have a quick look over at my layers, we'll see that I have them organized in a very particular way. Particularly, you'll see that I have multiple folders, each of which contain either the main body or various arms, different mouths, and eyes. The reason for this is that when creating your PngTuber, you can also create various expressions for them. If you're uncertain what expressions are, well, you've already seen a couple with my model as it is. As I explain things, I have my character hold up a little paper and squint at it because I don't like reading and words are hard. That is an expression. When in the program, we can set hotkeys to switch between different expressions. Essentially, we're just switching between different images we've created. This is why I recommend when creating your model, you break it into a couple of parts. Particularly, I have my model broken up as such. I have the base body, which is just the flat colors and the lines. I have multiple different mouths, of which I can flip between. And I have multiple sets of eyes. By breaking up my model this way, it allows for a large amount of variation in terms of expressions without having to draw a bunch of different stuff. However, you can create entirely new poses for each expression. It simply depends on how you want to depict your character. Because I already have my model set up most of the way, I'm simply going to show you me setting up the very last expression that I have yet to set up, and we'll continue from there. Dang, what a sad expression to go off of. I hadn't intended it to be so sad, but I was missing the tears expression, so there you go. You may have noticed while I was working that many of my layers are actually named. This is because I like to keep track of all the various eyes and mouths that I have. That way I can very easily create whatever combination I see fit for whichever expression I need. Organization is pretty important when you're making a PngTuber, especially if you set it up the way that I do. That way you never lose track of what's what when you're creating a specific expression. With that said, let me show you the organization method I use for saving my images. I have a very specific system when it comes to naming all my images. Particularly, I like to name them with whichever expression it is first, a dash, and then followed up with a very specific sequence. The reason for this is that when creating your artwork, you will need 4 images for every expression. Essentially, per every expression, you will need to have 4 images set up as such. Number 1, mouth closed and eyes open. Number 2, mouth open and eyes open. Number 3, mouth closed and eyes closed. And number 4, mouth open and eyes closed. The reason for this is that every time you speak, your model switches between the mouth open and mouth closed versions. And every character has a blink, which is automatic. However, when you switch to the blink, it is a new image. Hence why we need an extra 2 images with the character's eyes closed and the mouth open and closed as well. Essentially, whenever I save an image, I start by naming it with whichever expression it is, followed by M. In this instance, the mouth is closed, so I follow it up with C. Then E for the eyes, and the eyes are open, so I follow it up with an O. And remember to save it as a JPEG. Then, with that being done, I simply switch things out. So, now I need to have the mouth open. I simply turn off the closed mouth and bring out my open mouth. Then we do the same thing, except I changed mouth closed to mouth open. And now we do the exact same thing with both of the images of the eyes closed. And now our artwork is complete. It's time to move on to step 2. Welcome to Veadotube. This is where all the magic happens. Well, some of it. As you can see, I already have my character set up. However, when you enter this program for the first time, it'll look more like this. This deer is the mascot of the program, and the preset that's already installed once you open it for the first time. Aren't they nice? Don't get too attached, they're about to perish. It's extremely simple to insert your character. Along the top, you'll find 4 images. This is the mouth closed, mouth open, mouth closed blinking, and mouth open blinking. See what I was talking about? It's extremely easy to change these images. Simply click on the one you want to change, and find the folder with all the expressions you created. This is where the labeling system comes in extremely handy. Now I simply need to find the expression, this one being named tears, and find the one that has the mouth closed and eyes open. You'll see initially that every time I open my mouth, it switches to the deer, and every time the character blinks, it also switches to the deer. That's because we haven't changed the other images yet. And now we have effectively removed the deer. A tragedy, truly. Depending on how many expressions you want, or if you don't want any at all, you can stop right here in terms of the setup. You're pretty much done. There's a couple of things that still need to be worked out, but they're extremely simple. However, if you're like me and you want multiple expressions, you probably already noticed them all on the side. If you would like to set a new expression for your character, simply create a new state with this plus sign and do the same thing with changing all the images. I already have all of mine set up now, so now we need to set this new expression to a hotkey. And to do so is extremely simple. Hit the H at the top of the screen and simply input whatever you'd like the hotkey to be. Now, I can switch between my expressions, no problem. There's a few other minor things about the program. For example, my anger expression, you will find, has a rather different animation than my usual ones. If you'll notice in the corner, there's different expressions that you can apply to your character. So let's go back to state 2. The base animation is a very light floating around, which is usually what I prefer, but depending on what expression you gave your character, you can change it. There's a range to choose from, and you can change it for staying still and for when you're talking. They can both be different, and they can both be quite wild. That's all dependent on you. The only other thing of note are these sliders over here. My room has a slight bit of background noise, so you'll note whenever I'm not speaking that the bar won't go entirely to the bottom. This is pretty normal. However, depending on how much background noise you have, the noise itself may trigger your microphone rather than your voice. If that's the case, simply pull the threshold higher so it's further away from the background noise. This blue bar is the delay. Delay to what, you may ask? Well, the mouth closing. I have it set fairly high because I like the fact that the model sort of stops talking when I do. However, if you'd like the mouth to stay open for longer, you can simply yoink this arrow down lower, and it'll just take longer for the mouth to close after you stop speaking. Now, remember how I said to avoid at least one color? This is where it comes in handy. Over here on the display settings, go to background and simply switch to whichever background color is best suited for your character. For me, it's gray. And voila, you have officially set up the PngTuber. Now the question is, what do you do with it? Well, that's the fun part. I welcome you all to my friend, Streamlabs. This is the program that I use personally, but you can also download other OBS programs if you prefer them over this one, or if you already have a different one installed, that's fine too. I'll just be going over Streamlabs, but the process is pretty similar for other OBS as well. So first and foremost, you're likely not going to see the model in here. You have to add it in first. To do so, you'll want to go to the Sources section on the bottom of Streamlabs, and hit the plus sign. The best option to pick for Veadotube is Game Capture, so we'll click on that one, and we'll add a source. Now you'll notice that I already have an existing source for it. That's because, well, clearly I do. You will want to click on Add a New Source instead, and name it whatever you would like. I like to keep things organized, as I've said, so I named mine PngTuber. And then you would click Add Source. Once you do so, this window should show up. Make sure it's capturing a specific window. Now, for the window you want it to capture, pick Veadotube Studio. And then you would just hit OK. Now, you have your character, and you can size it up and down with the window. But we have a background. What do we do about that? Well, remember I said about keying out? There you go. Right-click on the source and go to Edit Filters. Click Add Filter, and we're going to click on Color Key. Streamlabs does have a chroma key option, however, I prefer Color Key as for me personally, I feel it does a better job, and also, depending upon what colors you picked, it may interfere with your model, particularly given that the colors are green, blue, and red, and my model has mint hair, blue eyes, and a pink hoodie. On Key Color Type, we're going to hit on Custom Color, and we're just going to select this little eyedropper and click the background color. Once you exit out, you will find you have officially keyed out your character. Now you may find your character to be floating a bit. Simply drag them just a little bit lower so they're not floating in space. You'll also note that I have a background. I simply added another source, image, and just chucked in an image of Mondstadt because of course I did. We are now one mere step away from utilizing the PngTuber in any application you wish. It's an extremely simple thing. Go to the settings in the corner of Streamlabs. Once in your settings, go down to Virtual Webcam and hit Start. Essentially, what you have done is turn your window in Streamlabs into a webcam. Well, what do we do now? We harass our classmates on Google Classroom. So now we're in a meeting. How do we put our character in? Well, simple. Go to the settings for whatever program you're using, go to Video, and under Camera, you should find Streamlabs Desktop Virtual Webcam. If you don't see it, simply let Streamlabs sit for a minute, close it out, and then open it again, as well as the program you're trying to use the camera for. You may have to turn it on for a first time before it'll actually read it. Once it does, however, your character is now in the meeting! Hooray! But wait a minute, we're backwards! A funny thing about Streamlabs and its virtual webcam, or any virtual webcam really, is that it usually tends to mirror the image. Don't ask me why that is. However, for my character in particular, this doesn't quite work. But there is a simple workaround. Going back into Streamlabs, right-click on the source of our PngTuber, go to Transform, and simply flip it horizontally. Now it's backwards in Streamlabs, but it's correct in our meeting. Congratulations, you have officially created a PngTuber! and I hope you enjoy every minute of harassing your friends with it. Thank you for watching.